Hi there, this is Jennifer with Brome Fields, and today we're working on some slippers. And I have some We Are Knitters yarn here with my size 17. So 17 12 millimeter knitting needles. They're Likes. And I'm just going to make the smallest ones to give you guys an idea of how to bring them all together. So we're going to cast on 6 stitches and I make a loop. I'm going to get a little bit more of a tail. So that's my first stitch, second stitch, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I like the long tail cast on method because it's the easiest for me. So I have my 6 stitches and we're going to be knitting in the magic loop method. So that means I'm going to take half of my stitches and we're going to put them on each needle. So I'm going to take this, and I have 40-inch cables. You do not need 40-inch cables. It's just, I have a pair of 24 and a pair of 40 length cables, and 32 might work better, but I don't have any 32-inch cables. So this is my cast on tail. And this is my working yarn. And the cast on tail, you want to keep it underneath at the bottom. And your working yarn, you want it to be on the top in the center always. And it's kind of hard. I always seem to get them all flipped around. It seemed to work all right this time, but usually I have them all flipped around. But you want your stitches to face the center, and then I bring them together so they go down to the bottom, and we have to keep that tail or the working yarn in the middle of your needles. If you go have it on the back side, then it will create an elongated stitch and it will not look very good at all. So we're going to take this back needle and pull it out, but not all the way. So we keep that on, tail on that side. And I always pull this first stitch to where it's like completely gone. And that really helps me not have ladders in my work, so it doesn't create a gap where it comes together. So on your first round, you're just gonna knit. So we're gonna knit all these stitches. And then we're going to flip that. So this working needle becomes our back needle, and we're going to push, resist the temptation to pull it from the cable because sometimes they break. And I really kind of have to push it in. Sometimes I actually have to pull this back one out to get this in. And I'd rather it be a little snug than a little loose. So we're going to do the same thing now. We're going to do the same thing on the other half. So I'm going to pull that first stitch tight, and then we're going to knit these 3 stitches. So it's all 6 stitches, which is 1 round. And we're going to put that working needle in the back again. So sometimes you can just do that, but once it gets tight, then you want to definitely push it through. But see how that's really tight? So you could pull that out to make it easier to push in. See that stitch? It just loosened right up. And the yarn needs to stay on the top and the center. And we'll pull that. So when your tail is back on the right side, that means you're starting a new round. So you don't have to use a place marker whenever you're knitting in the round. But later on you will weave this in, and then I would put a stitch marker here and leave it there, like a replaceable or removable stitch marker, safety pin, yarn, so you know that this is the side that you started on. It's not completely 100% important, probably not really important at all, but I don't know. if you're picky like me a little bit, then it's helpful. So round 2, this is where we're going to do our increase stitches. Now you can do it however you want and whatever works best for you. I'm just going to show you what I like to do and what works best for me. So I'm going to knit 1 and then increase 1. And how I increase 1 is I go into this stitch below and I knit into it, and then I'm going to knit that stitch in the middle, and then I'm going to knit 1 below that stitch. So I'm going to put that stitch on my needle and I'm going to knit into it, and then I'm going to knit that last stitch. So we increased 2 stitches. And I really like that. See, there's a little bit of a gap there, but you can close that up. On the second round, there's really, just very little gap in these. I'm just very happy with that increase. But use whatever increase. If you like a different increase, use whatever you're comfortable with. If you just want to use a backwards loop, and then if it leaves a gap, you can go through and seam it up. That's fine. Just whatever works for you. I just want to show you guys what I do and what I like doing. I haven't seen this type of increase, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So we'll do it again on this side so you can see it again. So I'm going to knit 1 stitch, and then I'm going to pick up the stitch below and knit into it. And then I'm going to knit 1 stitch, and then I'm going to pick up the stitch below, put it on the needle, and I'm going to knit into it, and then knit that last stitch. So now watch that 100 times. That's what I would do to make sure that I get it. Oh, sorry, that was probably really loud. But that is how I increase the stitches, and depending on your size, how many times you'll need to do that, 2 or 3. I have wide feet. I think I've increased mine 4 times. But you don't, however it fits you is really what is important. And then I gave an estimate on how long to make them. Now if you're making them as a gift, just keep in mind that they stretch a lot. So it's probably, I would recommend going on the shorter side so that they will stretch out and not fall off. If you go on the big side, then they can still grow into them if they're kids. But I think being a little on the small side so that they're a little snug is maybe a little safer. But if you're making them for yourself, you can just try them on as you go. On the pattern, I am on row 15. So however long you want your row to be up until it reaches about your ankle, because it will stretch. You want it to stretch a little bit. So maybe just 1 stitch shorter than where it would hit your ankle. So row 15 is a short row. So we're only going to knit 3 stitches. And on here, you really can't tell where I did the short row. It just kind of blends right in. But why we're doing the short row is that if we stopped right here and started knitting flat, then right here where we did this increase would be on the top of our foot. And we really want it to be like this. So these are our 2 increases right here. And we want this to be on the top or bottom. It's the same. Well, it won't be the same whenever we switch it. This is going to be the top. So what I'm going to do is we have these 3 stitches here that I have as my garter stitch, and then I have stocking knit all on the bottom. And then I will come back after I show you how to do this, that I'll show you how I bind off for this to give it a nice heel so that it doesn't poke out, so it's not square. I have been working on this for a long time. Since last year, I've been wanting to make slippers, and it just looked ridiculous because it had this big bump right here. So I finally figured out my trick to making that bump go away. So let's get started here. Enough talking. On row 15. We're gonna knit these first 3 stitches. So this is our short row and this is row 15. And then we're going to switch to knitting it flat. So we knitted these 3 stitches, and now when we knit flat, we're knitting the wrong side of our work. So this first stitch here, I'm going to knit 3 because I want them to be purl stitches on the right side. So I'm going to purl 3, knit 8, and then purl 3 again. So this is going to be our first garter stitch here. So we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4 garter stitches. Okay, so we're going to knit 3 because they're purl stitches on the right side of our work. And this is just kind of finagling and juggling, because I really want these other stitches on that side, but I can't do that quite yet. So after a couple of rows, it'll loosen up, and then I can get them all where I want them. So we purled or knitted those first 3, so now we're going to purl 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then this cable is pretty stiff. Yeah, it's not like knitting in the magic loop method where you have to have it on the side that's closer to you. So that was 8, and then we're going to knit 3 stitches. 1, oops. 1, 2, 3. And those are the original 3 that we knitted at the first. So we are back to our center. So then we're going to flip it back around to the right side of our work, and we're going to knit all of our stitches all the way around. It is a bit of juggling. Now, if you are talented and use DPNs, then I am very happy for you, because it might be easier on DPNs to do these. And then we're going to continue knitting, because we're knitting all the way around. This is row 17. And maybe if I heated those up with a blow dryer, that would be helpful. Oh my goodness. This is real life, okay? This is really what it looks like whenever I'm knitting with these things. It's just not easy. It saves so much time if I have had metal ones. All right, and then we have these last 3 stitches that we're going to knit, and we are back around to the beginning because we have that big gap there. So that's this right here. And I have tried these on a couple times, so it does separate there. So if you want to, you can reinforce it inside and weave just a scrap piece of yarn through it. And if you have a felter, you can felt it a little bit to help it. And because this is roving and 100% wool, it will felt over time. And I would say as you're wearing them, especially if you wash them, it will felt even faster. But I think that would give it even a completely different look than this. All right, so this was rows 16 and 17. And see, you can't even really tell that you have that extra 3 stitches there. And they just hide in there pretty easy, which I was very surprised. I thought it would be off, but it isn't. So you want to repeat row 16 and 17 3 more times so that you have 4 ridges here and end on a knit row. And then I will come back and show you the last row when we bind off. So I won't be back. I will keep that in a separate video so that these stay a little short. You don't have to watch this whole thing to learn how to bind off. So I will put it in a different video below this one. So I will hopefully see you guys in the next video. 16 and 17. And see, you can't even really tell that you have that extra 3 stitches there. And they just hide in there pretty easy, which I was very surprised. I thought it would be off, but it isn't. So you want to repeat row 16 and 17 3 more times so that you have 4 ridges here and end on a knit row. And then I will come back and show you the last row when we bind off. So I won't be back. I will keep that in a separate video so that these stay a little short. You don't have to watch this whole thing to learn how to bind off. So I will put it in a different video below this one. So I will hopefully see you guys in the next video. Help it. And because this is roving and 100% wool, it will felt over time. And I would say as you're wearing them, especially if you wash them, it will felt even faster. But I think that would give it even a completely different look than this. All right, so this was rows 16 and 17. And see, you can't even really tell that you have that extra 3 stitches there. And they just hide in there pretty easy, which I was very surprised. I thought it would be off, but it isn't. So you want to repeat row 16 and 17 3 more times so that you have 4 ridges here and end on a knit row. And then I will come back and show you the last row when we bind off. So I have knitted, so I have 4 ridges. And I repeated that 3 times and I knit 1 row. So now I'm ready to bind off in all purl stitches, except there's a couple of purl 2 togethers. So I found these Likey needles, size 17, so I don't have to use those plastic ones. Making sure I have all my stitches. So we're going to purl 5. 1, 2. We're going to purl and bind off 5. So that was 2, 3, 4, 5. And you don't have to make it too loose or too tight, just kind of somewhere in the middle. And you can always go back and redo it if you want to. I think I do mine. I just have a tendency to bind off a little on the tight side, I think, because sometimes I bump up to a higher needle size to bind off looser. So we purled 2 together and bound those off. And then we're going to purl these last 5 stitches, and I'll flip it over and show you. 2, 3, 4, 5. For some reason, purling off and while you bind off is just more difficult than the knit bind off. Here, pull that a little long, set those aside. So that is what it looks like in the back. And alrighty, so now I am ready to sew the seam on the back of this. So I want to turn it right side out so I can bring these 2 seams together. So we're going to bring this around here. We're bringing the tips together. And I'm going to go through one more time. Oh, and I lost my needle. All right, so we're going to grab the inside of both sides of that stitch. We're not grabbing all 4 parts of the stitch. So there's the stitch and here's a stitch. And we're not grabbing that outside or that outside. We're just going to grab the inside, and I go back and forth, not across. Oops. We're just going to cut that. And to grab the inside. So got it from the other side. So we don't have it poking through the other, we have a clean seam. So we're going to grab the inside and inside again. And there's just 4 stitches here that we really need to grab. Oops, sorry. Bonked my camera. So we have those 4 stitches, not too tight. And then we flip it through, and that's what it looks like on the other side. Not as quite as clean, but pretty close. That is how I did it on the other one. I just grabbed those stitches. Yeah, it's pretty close. So now you just want to weave this tail in and hide the tail. So you will want to do the same thing on this side, and I did flip it all the way inside out, which wasn't very easy, but I did try to do it as delicately as I could so I didn't stretch this out too much. And again, you can seam if you want to put a string in there, your yarn, and reinforce it, and even felt it if you want to. So that is how you bring it all together. So there's the one that I cut out, and I used my ramekin to draw a circle. And go around a couple times so I can actually see it. Looks a little thin on that side. Okay, so have my circle. And then I use my little scissors because it was easier. Big scissors, they're just kind of bulky. So, and I'm just really careful to just cut through this fabric part just to get it started. And that's all I want to cut. It really just want to try to cut this fabric without cutting the fur on the other side. And it does take a while to go all the way around because, I mean, I want to be careful, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It's a little messy because see here you have these little fuzzies, but whenever you flip it over, when you take this off, you'll see there's a little bit that comes out of it from this part of the clipping process. I don't want to take too big. Those were a little bit too big of bites. All right, so I will go ahead and cut the rest of this, and then I will come back because you guys don't want to sit here the whole time I cut this. All right, so I have it to where I took it out. So you can see, I have a little bit that I'm going to lose around the edge, but I still have it nice and long. So I didn't trim off any of these hair, the gray tips. So that's really what I was trying to be careful of, not to cut the tips of it off. All right, so since we have this little guy cut out, I'm going to take this fabric away. And I have a needle here with some white thread on it, and I did a double knot at the end of it, and it goes through, the little knot will go through So I'm just going to take like one stitch and see if I can get a little closer here. See if it'll like that. Okay, so I'm just going to take like one stitch here and not all the way to the knot, and then I go through my yarn to catch it. And the hair does kind of get in the way, so I kind of have to be careful with, so you don't want to have too much yarn. All right, so we have that started there. This is all very bright. So I just go and I baste all the way around the edge. And then I will cinch it. Let's see here how we got those long tails. Oh my goodness. So it does get knotted really easy. I usually like to have it laying down on the table whenever I do this, but I can't get my camera any closer. And then those little guys got in the way. So still working with the flyaways, I guess. Let's see here. Hold that. Oh, we just have a little bunch in it. That's okay, nobody's gonna see this. All right, and then just keep working your way around. And I try not to go too far, I think a couple times. A little further than I'd like, but it's not a science, just in and out. And try not to grab any of the hair. See, like this here, before I pull, I'm gonna get it out of the hair first. Try. See, that worked much better. So whenever you look on Etsy to purchase faux fur pom-poms, and they cost $6 each, okay, it takes work to do this. I think $6 is inexpensive, considering that the faux fur fabric, I don't know that it's called fabric, was $40, I believe, which is, I think, a little pricey, but it's cool. All right, so now we have that, and then we're gonna just cinch it up. And I don't put anything inside of it. I just do that and cinch it. And just, the trick is to keep the hairs out of the way. So maybe I have discouraged you completely from buying this fabric and making pom-poms like this. And you can just go purchase some. Now, my ramekin is 2.5 inches wide. So I don't know. I think I've seen like some 6-inch poms. All right, so now that it's finished, excuse me, I have hiccups. I guess there's a first time for everything. So I don't know if that would be like a 3-inch pom or a 4-inch pom. I don't know where it measures to, but that's what mine is. But my ramekin itself is only 2.5 inches. Almost 2.5 inches. There you go. So that is how I made my pom, and then just sew it onto the back of your slippers. And you can of course make tons of them with that fabric. And I thought you could even use them on all kinds of different things, like on hand, like fingerless gloves or leg warmers, or on the brim of your hat. I don't know, you could go faux fur crazy. Or make poms for your blankets. That would be cute. So anyways, lots of ideas you can use these cute little poms for, because they really are cute and super lightweight. The bigger ones though, like for hats, I believe that I've seen people stuff them with like cotton filler or the polyfill. So you can do that. I thought that these didn't need that weight because they're going on the back of slippers. I didn't want them to be heavy, so I just left it like that without anything inside. And I feel like as small as it is, it keeps its shape very well, but the bigger ones would need some help keeping it filled out. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And you guys, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below and I will get to them shortly. So thank you guys so much for watching.